Hello, welcome to Power Principles. My name is Peter Mueller and I have developed this video series to provide you with some valuable lessons for life. Today we talk about the power principle number 1, which I phrased time is more valuable than money, and we are covering in part 3 today our digital universe. To find our video series on YouTube, you simply type into the search engine Dr. Peter Mueller Power Principles and you will find all our videos. Another way of getting information about our videos is you simply subscribe to my YouTube channel. In part 1 and 2, we talked in general terms about time management, about general strategies and where our time goes, which habits we have developed over time, which are not necessarily very productive ones when it comes to time management. We have learned that the time can be basically divided into 4 quadrants of activities. Quadrant 1 I call the stress quadrant, urgent and important activities. Quadrant 2 I call the achievement quadrant. Number 3, the devil's corner or devil's quadrant, and the quadrant 4, the waste quadrant. When we make the first time an honest time log, we will realize that we spend only a third on important activities and about 70 on not important. However, when we look at our perceived urgency, we believe that we spend 80% on urgent matters, which causes the stress. However, once we learn to put our activities into the right context, we will find out that actually we should spend much more time in quadrant 2 than in quadrant 3. Going back, originally in our time management matrix, we found that we have about 60% of our time in urgent but not important tasks. And the not urgent and important tasks take only 10%. Now, when we make successful time management training and tactics and changing our behavior, we should be spending 75% of our time in important objects, on important tasks, and only 25% on not important tasks. And if we make the right shift from quadrant 3 to quadrant 2, we also reduce our urgency from 80% down to 35%. In the previous segment, we talked about the steps 1, 2, and 3, the digital detox, cleanup, and dedicated timing. We simply manage the quantity of time we spend in the digital world or on various activities. Today, we talk about steps 4 and 5, about our digital universe, our digital footprint, and our information management. Now, when we look at it, we talked about our digital cleanup, and when we apply the right strategies, we actually shift 40% of our time from unimportant to important tasks, but to not urgent ones. And the core reason how we can actually reduce our time in quadrant 3 is eliminating or reducing 4 of our classical time wasters, which are interruptions, disorganization, the urgency addiction, and information overload. And in our days, for most of us, these things are highly correlated to our digital world, with our devices, our apps, and our digital media. So our personal computer, laptop, iPad, and on and on and on. And the key activities we are performing with our data and information relate simply to the storage, how we share it and communicate it, how we collaborate with other people, and how we can access our information. When we manage those 4 dimensions properly in a hardware infrastructure with the right apps, then we live in digital heaven which will help us to free up all that time we need for the really important tasks. Now, when it comes to data and information, there are basically two components to it. There is a file name to it, and there is a location on our devices. Number one, I would suggest that most of us don't have a very good and disciplined file naming convention. And number two, our structure, where we locate it. For example, in a Walmart, it takes you 4 steps to find an article out of millions, and theoretically you should be able to do the same thing on your computer hard drive. As I said before, if you don't find things within 30 seconds, then your file naming is not okay or your filing structure is not okay. Now, when we talk about our digital footprint, so we have the 4 devices, the types of devices. We have the cell phone, we have the desktop, we have the tablet or laptop, and then as external storage devices, as hardware, we have the stick and we have the external hard drive. In these days, you can get sticks with 128 gigabyte, which used to be an external drive, which now we are talking about 3-4 gigabyte of storage. Now, the key to the successful management of our information is that we have one filing structure on all devices, which is the same everywhere. It allows us not only to find everything the same way, secondly, it allows us to synchronize our information between the devices. And you all know our File Explorer gives us the capability to create a kind of a tree structure with various levels of hierarchy. And one of my basic rules for your computer tree, so to speak, it should not more have than 2 levels down of the tree structure. When it's more than 3, which tells me that you haven't found the proper grouping of your information in the first 2 layers. So my rule of thumb is 3 clicks and you have to get it. And you need to develop really a filing convention for yourself, that you give all your information a specific time. So one of the key activities for the future in the framework of your digital cleanup will be grouping your files, making a new tree structure. We talk about it in a second. And then it will also relate to the fact that you will have to rename some of your files to faster find them. And the filing system, I can guarantee you, it will evolve over time. You go to a job and you are a product manager, you get a new product, so you have to open a new folder for the product with certain dimensions to it. You learn new people to know, so you have to create new folders for people, and so forth. Now, to make this easy, this exercise relatively easy. So when you go to Walmart, if you want a gallon of milk, for example, you know, number 1, to which department you have to go. Then you ask the person to which aisle you have to go, and then you go to a shelf, and then you have the item. So you have 4 steps, you have 3 descriptors, and you are at it. Whether it is a 128 gigabyte computer chip or whether it's a dozen of eggs. It is 3 steps and you are there. And that's the way you have to organize it. When you go to the Library of Congress, you have 3 to 4 layers and you have it. But our filing structure does not need to be as sophisticated as the Library of Congress. We can do it very simple with 3 clicks and you are there. Now, how are we going to do this? First, you have to understand your own mental syntax. If you take all the information you have, you simply make a list of big buckets. Now, how do I give these big buckets names? This is depending on your mental syntax. What do I mean by mental syntax? You have to know what you can remember quickly and how you work logically. For example, are you somebody who refers always to the name of people? So you would have a lot of folders which start with people's names, or if you relate your information to locations, that it starts, your first hierarchy is based on locations, or are you somebody who can relate it to events or to a specific time? So create the basic dimensions where you know you can remember it easy, and take all your files, create 10 buckets and put them into the 10 buckets. And what is left over, you have to find a bucket where you can put it in, create a new one, a miscellaneous or whatever, that you have it into those 10 buckets. And then you go to each individual bucket and you go through the same thing. So for example, if you have a folder with people, then you have 10 people. And then for the people, how do I cluster the information for the people? Do I relate to them when I'm in the human resource department, for example, for their CVs, for their application forms, for their performance reviews, whatever. So you create then the second layer, and with that you should be done. So let's assume you have 10 big buckets and each bucket has 10 folders in it. So you would have a file structure with 100 different shelves basically. And when you have in each of them 100 files, you would have 10,000 files very well organized. And if you eliminate all duplicates and a lot of stuff, I can guarantee you most people will be fine with 10,000 pieces properly organized. Now here to the tree structure. When you go to Microsoft Office, for example, to Microsoft Explorer, you give it certain names. Peter, Paul, Jerry, Christmas, whatever. And it will put it in alphabetic order. So the files, the folders with A are on the top, and then it goes down like that. Now you may want to have one folder where you have all your work related stuff, all the active files. You always want to go there very quickly. Now when you call it work, it is called W and it's down on the tree. Here is a small trick. You see down, the highest hierarchy in the sorting are the special characters below, as you can see it on the lower left corner. When you start a folder name with an exclamation mark, it will jump to the top. So if you have, for example, a folder starting exclamation mark work, or 1 work, or 0 work, it will go before every other folder starting with an A, B, C, D, or so forth. So these special characters down there give you the possibility to move folders up in the hierarchy for the ones which you use very frequently. And the hierarchy between those special characters is exactly the one I've shown you down. So exclamation mark is the first, then you have the pound, then you have the dollar, and so forth. Now, how do I organize my hardware, software, and apps and my information? Now, you know one of those devices you have your desktop, you have your phone, and you have your laptop, iPad, or whatever kind of digital device. Number one, I would recommend you get some cloud space, and there are several ways to do it. An easy way to do it, you open a Gmail account, you get an email address and open a Gmail account, and then you can open a Google Cloud directory which gives you 15 gigs for free, which is a lot. And the cloud space, as you can see it, enables you to store that information which is accessible from all your devices on real time. And that is a place where you always have your active information, where your active work is, which you can synchronize on a regular basis. When you go travel, it doesn't matter if you are with your phone on the way or with your laptop, you can always go to the cloud if you are in a Wi-Fi environment and you get your information. Now, For cloud space, you get free cloud space from Google Drive. You get a few gigabytes from Microsoft on OneDrive. Another familiar one is the Dropbox. And the three free ones, which are currently on the market, is Mega, MediaFire, and PC Cloud, which give you between 5 and 50 gig of free cloud space. So here you are. This is your universal space where you have all your critical information in real time available. Another way of carrying always an up-to-date version with you regardless of the device, you have one of those sticks where you have your active files. As I said, you can have them for $20. You get a 128 gigabyte stick. And on that stick, you have the same directory and file and folder structure as you have it on your laptop, on your iPad, and on your tablet for that matter, and also on your terabyte long-term storage device. So that's how you can organize. So for most people, it would be actually absolutely fine and okay to have one stick where they have always, before you go travel or once a week, you make a synchronization and a backup. And for those who are often and frequently in a Wi-Fi environment, you have always your cloud updated. And I would recommend to create a kind of a work directory, an exclamation mark work, and then you can make subfolders under it where all the active files you are working on it are always present on every of the devices and in the cloud. So you have access to everywhere, you can collaborate with everybody, and you can access it even from a foreign computer. You don't need your own software to do this. Now, from a browser point of view, if you are in the Windows world, I recommend 4 different browsers. The Edge from Microsoft is the absolute must-have one. If your computer crashes and with virus and you cannot access anything, this is the only browser which gets you always rebooted, while the others might fail. Google Chrome I recommend for you if you have Google Cloud. With Google Chrome, you have access automatically to your Google account and to the Google apps, to Docs, Worksheet, and so forth. If you are just looking for speed of a browser, you can consider Mozilla Firefox. And if you want security as a highest priority, then you can go to Tor and you use the DuckDuckGo search engine with it. This is a kind of a VPN type of browser where the server from the company cannot track it back to you. But that can mean some of the providers will refuse to show the information you want, and then you can use another one. Now, as a few goodies at the end, if you look for low-cost or no-cost apps, here I have a list for your phone, what I think are the absolute essentials. For your smartphone, I recommend the Google platform, the Google browser, because you have with Docs, Sheet, and Slide a kind of a Microsoft Office version for free on your cell phone, which you can back and forth translate or send to your computer and convert it into Microsoft Office applications. And actually you can get the Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint free downloads on the Google Store for your cell phone. Then I would get one of the good free voice recorders you can download in the Google Store. Then I would take speech notes, which is a simply dictation device. You speak in it and it writes it out for you, and you can transfer your spoken memo or whatever to any kind of other app or software. And then I would get one reading glasses, one of those magnifier apps that you can actually read small text with your smartphone. For communication purposes, I recommend Skype and WhatsApp to have video conferencing, especially when you work with Europe and over the world. As a substitute for your GPS device in the car, you can use Google Maps or Waze. And as a file manager for smartphones, I recommend the file manager from Xiaomi, which has the most intuitive menu structure, I think, at least. And when you look for free apps, I go simply by the following rule. I look for ones with 4 or 5-star ratings and with a high number of downloads, and then you are relatively safe to get a stable and good app. For your laptop, iPad, and for the other platforms, here are 10 free softwares for various kind of environments where I think these are the best free on the market. WPS Office, which gives you basically a generic version of Microsoft Office, fully compatible. You can use also in the same way Google Docs, Sheet, and Slide through the Chrome browser. And then I recommend as an email platform, Thunderbird, which gives you a Microsoft Office kind of look, and it works through Windows, through Mac and Linux operating systems. And for email in the Windows world, you can also download Outlook Express Classic, which emulates Microsoft Outlook perfectly, and you don't have to pay anything for it. If you want to stream and export MP3 files, I think Audacity is the best free app you can get. If you want to do video editing with VoiceOver and an Adobe Premiere kind of look and feel, work kind of software, HitFilm Express, from my point of view, is the best free video editing software. For the video production and studio production kind of software, I recommend OBS Studio. What you see here, I made in OBS Studio. And if you need free web design software, I think Microsoft Expression Web 4 is the best one out there for free. For photos, for photo editing, I personally use Photoscape as one of my favorite softwares. And for the browsers, if I want security, safety, I don't want to be spied on, I use the Tor browser. So I think I gave you a good overview on how you can fine-tune your new digital universe from software applications and some little tricks on it. This was it for Power Principle 1 Part 3. In Part 4 we will talk about Quadrant 2 management, the power of goals, because if you eliminate 40% of your time from Quadrant 3, you need meaningful objectives and goals for your Quadrant 2, the really important things which will create more value for you and for your company and for your private life. Please give us some feedback if you like it. You see the email down. Please send us feedback, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and thank you for watching. See you for Part 4.